So good morning everyone. My name is Tanuj Bhatt.
And my name is Piyush Adhikari. We both are preparing for our ND SSB entry.
And today we have prepared a presentation on the current affairs that is subdivided into national, international and defense news. So here we begin. So starting with the defense news. First we have the Project Kusha Squadron induction. So recently 10 new squadrons of the Project Kusha missile systems have been inducted into the Indian Air Force. So it goes like the Indian Air Force has confirmed the induction of 10 squadrons of the indigenous Kusha air defense system. As I mentioned earlier, these are the indigenous systems that include the missile systems, different missiles and also different smaller equipments. So talking further, this long range surface to air missile system will bridge the critical capability gap between the medium range and the Russian S-400 missile defense system. So first of all, I'd like to tell the different systems here. First, we have is the medium range surface to air missile defense system. So this will be integrated with the S-400 so that they coordinate well and give the best outcomes. Moreover, talking about this, it has each squadron will have 8 firing units and each will be containing around 120 launchers and 1500 missiles each. And the induction contract for the 5 squadrons that was approved in May 2022, that was valued around 21,700 crore rupees. And the later we will be seeing that in the coming years the rest 5 squadrons will be inducted successfully. Then afterwards, I'd like to tell you about the technical specifications. Talking about the range of this missile defense system, so it bridges around 80 to 400 kilometer gap with the existing one. Next, we have the deployment. As I mentioned, in total we have 10 squadrons. Moreover, the firepower, 120 launchers in per squadron we have, and the missiles 1500 per squadron. Cost of the 5 squadrons, the induction of everything in 5 squadrons will be around 21,700 crore rupees. And afterwards the timeline, as I mentioned, in the coming years around 2028 to 30, the total induction of these all 10 squadrons will be done. Next. Okay, the next we have is the HTT-40, India's indigenous trainer aircraft. So this has been an aircraft that is equipped with the modern technologies. As we know that, first of all, we have the cockpit in this. Next, we have the ejection system. So the first flight achievement, the HALs, that is the Hindustan Aeronautical Limitations Hindustan Turbo Trainer 40. So this is the aircraft that is complete its maiden flight on October 25, 2025, recently as we know. So it took from Bengaluru, making a milestone to India's quest for self-reliance in the basic training. As we know that for the training of an Indian Air Force fighter pilot, we actually need good trainer aircraft so that they can cope up with the environment that is actually provided to them. So we can say that this new aircraft provides those environments and also the modern technologies that are actually present in the jet aircrafts. So the next I'd like to talk about the key statistics. The type is actually the turboprop basic trainer. This comes under this type, and the order. So we have total in 70 aircrafts. As mentioned here, it started all in March 2023. And talking about the indigenous content, that means that including the parts, its development, over 60% of that is done in India itself. Now talking about the advanced features, as I mentioned, that it has the glass cockpit, it has different engines, that is the TPE 331 engine and 00 ejection seats. So these are something that are actually present in the aircrafts that are used in the fights or the dog fights. So this will ultimately improve the experience of the fighter pilots that are being trained. Next. Okay, so recently we know that the Indian Army, Air Force and Navy, they all conduct different exercises. Either it is trilateral or we can say with different countries itself. So recently we have the Harimova Shakti and the Surya Kiran exercises. The first was between India and Malaysia, and the second, that is the Surya Kiran exercise. This was between India and Nepal. And now talking about this, Harimova Shakti 2025. This was the 5th edition of this very exercise conducted on 18th of December 2025 in Rajasthan in India itself. It was around 2 to 3 days of training in which the forces of Malaysia, they came to India in Rajasthan and they did the training for improving their interoperability. Next, we had the Surya Kiran. So this also was conducted around in December itself in 2025, in which the militaries of India and Nepal, they both coordinated well and looked for different, we can say that different measures that they can take while getting into a fight or in a conflict. So this improves the interoperability and operational readiness, we can say. Next. Now again, here we have a crucial topic, that is the Neoma Air Base. It is being operationalized, as we know that it is the highest air base that is being done in the Ladakh. So we can say that it is the world's highest air base. So talking about its specifications, the first is the strategic importance. It lies near the LOC, we can say that line of actual control. So it provides a better surveillance and keeping a check of that area, because we know that it is occupied by the China. The near it has also deployed many of the bases and its army. The next is the border proximity. As I mentioned, it is near the LAC, which will enable that we transport the different equipments, or we can say the aircraft in a very quick manner, we can say. Next is the post-Galwan posture. So we know that after the Galwan clash, there have been many engagements between India and China regarding the diplomatic talks, we can say, so as to lessen the situation or the extent, we can say. In that, we also adopted different engagements where ties were done, including that we will be away from that line and we will maintain the peace. The fourth is the Ladakh base. So this is the base that is located at a very high altitude. So it is to be took care that the government provides better facilities over there, the oxygen cylinders and the better facilities for the pilots itself. Next. So okay, now I'd like to call Piyush. He will be telling the next of the news, including the national and the international.
So gentlemen, from here I will be taking the charge of the defense news and the national news. So moving further about the defense news, we have recently the India-Brazil Naval Cooperation. This is the naval cooperation between the India and Brazil, which enhance the naval fertility between the India and the Brazil. We have seen that Three-party memorandum of understanding was signed in the December 2025 between Indian Navy and the Brazilian Navy. Right. So this defense deal between the India and Brazil memorandum of understanding helps India as well as the Brazil for the transfer of technology and for the further enhancement in its role. Like we have seen the focus like cooperation on Scorpion class submarine, maintenance, repairs and research and development. Also about the transfer of technology, as I mentioned earlier. Talking more about it, enhance the strategic partnerships, as we have seen that BRICS, South Defense Cooperation, Joint Shipbuilding, Maritime Domain and Awareness. Now talking about the cooperation areas which it has submarine maintenance, basically which is of Scorpion class systems, joint shipbuilding, technology sharing, as I mentioned earlier, maritime awareness, domain and monitoring, training exchange, research and development collaboration, and with the BRICS, as we have seen that in the next year, India is going to host the BRICS summit. So for that, it is very much necessary for India to be in the great deal of the nations which are in the BRICS. So now going to our national news, the very first news is that the Indigo aviation crisis. So gentlemen, as we have seen that recently we have Indigo crisis, like DGCA has passed certain rules regarding the pilots and about the flights. So which has caused a crisis basically in the Indigo aviation sector. Like we have seen approximately 1800 flights cancelled across major political including Delhi, Mumbai and Bengaluru. The crisis affect thousands of passengers and disrupted India's aviation sector during peak travel season. Gentlemen, what are the root causes of the flight deviation? Like I have already mentioned that DGCA have passed certain rules about the flights and the pilots. So the very first rule is the crew shortage. As the DGCA has mentioned that minimum 8 hours, maximum 8 hours of flight is to be there for a pilot in a single day. And only the rest of the 48 hours, means 2 days rest will be given to the pilot. So for that, there will be a crew shortage in the aviation sector. The other one is that new FDTL rules, flight duty time limitations, mandating 48 hours of rest periods. The other one is that restoring glitches, systems failure in crew scheduling system. As also I want to say that restoring glitches, that in the reception center of the aviation sector like Indigo crisis, they have not updated their system that the flight have cancelled. So for that, maximum of the people have come to the airport and then only they find that their flights are cancelled. The other one is the over expansion, almost 6% schedule expansion without adequate resource planning. So now talking about resource and recovery, gentlemen, very first is that the refunds issued. Total 610 crore disbursed to affected passengers. Regulatory action. DGCA, which is Directorate General of Civil Aviation, has launched comprehensive probe into operational failures. It has taken the fully accountability to check out what are the main reasons. The other one is that recovery timeline. Full operational normalcy achieved by mid-December 2025 and policy implications. Like it highlights need for robust crew management systems and gradual capacity expansion in India's rapidly growing aviation sector. Now other news is Delhi Air Quality Index. As we have seen that in the Delhi, due to the pollution, the AQI has risen above the 400. So which it causes a major concern about the air pollution. As I mentioned, AQI levels, that from the date 21st December to 22nd December, the range is approximate 365 to 374. But during the time, it has also crossed the AQI of 400, which needs to be caused very severe attention. Like 1200 locations exceeded 400 AQI, basically Anand Vihar, which has a reporting of 438, and ITO reporting of 405. Talking about the impact and disruptions, the severe air pollution can trigger cascading disruptions into the India as well as the people of the Delhi residing there, as they have problem in breathing, and also it can cause to the breathing diseases, like also flight operation delayed, diverted, like due to the air pollution the pilots are not able to see the clear visibility. So for that, train schedules are disrupted, public health emergency declared, and schools are closed temporarily because the children are the very at the vulnerability age to cause any disease. Talking about graded response action plan activated, like how to overcome it. Complete ban on entry of trucks. Construction activities halted, as construction activities can cause lead to the very critical gases like carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, NO2 and N2O, which can cause pollutants in the air and can definitely cause the air pollution. Industrial operations and odd even vehicle scheme was also considered here. The other one is that the tech giants invest in India's AI future, as Microsoft has invested rupees 1.45 lakh crore into the commitment, like investing $17.5 billion over 4 years, which basically focus AI and cloud infrastructure deployment, development, state and data-centric construction, digital skilling program for 10 million Indians. Talking more about Google's AI Hub initiative, like investment, it has invested $15 million over the 5 years. India's first dedicated AI hub established here. And talking more about the strategic impact, like positions India as a global AI research and development center. Like we have an aim that Viksit Bharat alignment, which both investments directly support India's vision of technological self-reliance and AI sovereignty. As we have seen that AI is very much useful in our future, and the future is completely dependent on the AI. So investing the tech giants into the India, it can enhance the beneficial image of the India in the globe and increases its FDI in index. Now I would like to call my partner Tanuj Bhatt for the news further.
So alright, I'll be now moving to the next news, which is the national news first. The first is the Shanti Bill, which is the nuclear energy revolution in India, we can say it. So talking about it, recently a bill was passed in the parliament after it was approved by the President of India. So it was like the legislative details are its name. Its full form is Sustainable Harnessing and Advancement of Nuclear Energy for Transforming India. And as I mentioned, it was approved by the President Draupadi Murmu on 20 of December 2025 itself. And now talking about the nuclear policy of India, like how it has been. So the new bill, it has replaced two landmark legislations that we have. The first is the Atomic Energy Act. It is of 1962. And the second is the Civil Liability for the Nuclear Damage Act 2010. And now question is that why is it important? Why this bill was introduced in the present time? So we know that the increasing demand, or we can say that the hype of Pakistan, we know that USA recently got, it was interested in mining areas of the Pakistan, so as to get different, it has got the intuition of there are many minerals, or we can say uranium over there. So it becomes important for India that India also ensure its national interest and work accordingly. So one of the key feature of this is the private sector entry. So the ground-breaking changes open nuclear power generation to the private companies, while the government rotates control over the sensitive nuclear fuel cycle. So it is being done that the involvement of the private sectors, or we can say the companies, is being done so as to do the work more efficiently, or we can say targeting more areas. Next is what are the targets? So the current capacity of this nuclear is, we know that it's 8.78 gigawatt, and a mission, or we can say our aim by the year 2031 to 32 is to reach till 22 gigawatt. And we know that Viksit Bharat by 2047. Along with that, the vision also include 100 gigawatt of this nuclear energy. So it will definitely support the net zero carbon emission goals, we can say, or the gaps that we are having in the present. So alright, one more hot topic in the present is the Aravalli Hills, and it is an environmental crisis. So first of all, talking about it, what exactly it is. So these are some of the protests that are being run in states like Delhi, Rajasthan, Gujarat and Haryana, in which the Aravalli Hills are present. So talking about this specifically Delhi. So Delhi's NCR, the Aravalli Hills, it acts as a natural barrier. So and about the Rajasthan, it is the largest affected state that is by this Aravalli Hills crisis. Next is the Gujarat, which include the southern ranges of the Aravalli Hills. And the last but not the least, the last state is the Haryana, which includes some of the problems which are involved in this with the water shortage. So now what was the exact Supreme Court statement, or we can say the announcement. So on 20th of November 2025, it was approximately 90% of Aravalli Hills stripped of protected status under new definition accepted by the Apex Court. A new definition was being stated further that if the land is above 100 meters of elevation, so it will be considered the part of the Aravalli Hills. So what are the environmental threats regarding this? The first is the desertification. We know that if mining is more done in areas like this, which are vulnerable to happening the landslides, or we can say destruction. So the accelerated expansion of the Thar Desert, excuse me. Yes, exactly. The expansion of the Thar Desert eastwards. We know that towards the east side, the area of Rajasthan, that is the desert area, is being extended. So it is not good for the particular area because there will be the shortage of water, and also there will be the ecological imbalance. Next, we have the water scarcity. The loss of the crucial groundwater recharge areas. We know that due to the mining, the grounds will be excavated, or we can say they'll be taken out. So it will definitely affect the water level, and water scarcity will take place. Next is the man-animal conflict. So as I mentioned, the ecological imbalance. It will hamper the very balance that is being maintained between the plants, animals and the humans. Next we have the export warning. The environmental activities, they predict the potential ecosystem collapse that will affect the 100 plus million peoples. So as we know that the people living over that area will be affected, and it will hamper their lives, we can say. The next we have is the cyclone Deshwa that recently came in Sri Lanka's, mainly that area. So we can say that it was Sri Lanka's humanitarian crisis. So talking specifically about that, we can say that the disaster impact and timeline. The name of the cyclone was Deshwa, and the date that took the prominent actions that happened was 28th of November 2025. The affected regions were including the southern parts of India, or we can say basically the Sri Lanka area that was affected. It represented one of the Sri Lanka's worst natural disasters in the recent history, we can say. The Central Highlands, known for the tea plantations, or we can say the jute cultivation and the dense population, bore the brunt of flooding and the landslides. Next, talking about the warning system concerns. So after that, we see that India provided assistance to it in terms of we have the Operation Sagar Bandhu, in which we provided different equipments, or we can say the humanitarian assistance in form of food and different equipments, as I mentioned. And also it is evident that if cyclones like this hit the areas, it will affect the life of the people. As I have mentioned that more than 643 confirmed deaths were there, and there were many missing people too, that were 180 plus. And there was the loss of infrastructure also. Like here mentioned, it is that more than 50,000 houses and the property was damaged. Many people were likewise, we can see that, displaced, and it also caused some of the severe consequences like the flooding, widespread landslides, multiple dam breaches. As we know that dams have been developed in areas of the Sri Lanka, so they were also devastated by this. Alright, so next we move towards the Bangladesh unrest, the pre-election violence and the political turmoil. So diving into the history, we know that in the year 2024 itself, it was the fall of the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina due to the protest by the youth and the students of that country regarding the government quota that was being provided to the descendants of the veterans of the 1971 war. So likewise, we see that there came the interim government in that country, and in the present, what is burning is the death of the student leaders. One of the prominent one is the Sheriff Osman, who got died in a protest, likewise while he was doing protest. So we can say that it somewhat hampered, or we can say increased the anger among the youth and the students. It like what we can say, it created unemployment in the area. So people were angry regarding that. Likewise, we also see that the elections in this country. So these are now delayed to the mid 2026. And we see that from 2024, it has been more than 1 year that elections are not held over there. Alright, now I'd like to call Piyush for the next news.
Okay, so here it says Thailand-Cambodia border conflict. As Thailand-Cambodia represents Southeast Asia's most serious military confrontation in decades, and the dispute over a contested border areas, dramatically evolving airstrikes, rocket attacks, and massive civilian displacement. So what is the Thailand response towards it? The one is F-16 airstrikes launched, advanced drone operation deployed against border positions. The Cambodia retaliation over the attack. like rocket fire intensifies, defense positions reinforced along disputed territory. Now talking about the diplomatic fallout between the two, like border closure, ambassadors recalled, and international mediation sought urgently. Now the human cost, as we have seen that the war can cause the human, like Thailand-Cambodia border conflict, having the conflict between Thailand and Cambodia, that there is a loss of life, like 33 deaths, 168,000 displacement from July 2025, which is a serious number, and this cannot be ignored. What are the military actions? As I talked earlier, that F-16 strikes, drone operation, and rocket exchanges are taking places here. And what are the international response? As we have seen that Thailand and Cambodia are the part of the ASEAN, which is Association of Southeast Asian Nations. So like Asian mediation was there, UN ceasefires, and regional concern. Likewise, we have seen that recently Putin has visited India in December this year. So Putin's strategic visit to India. As talking more about it, it is the 23rd India-Russia Annual Summit, which was held at 4 and 5 December 2025 at Hyderabad House, New Delhi. PM Modi and President Putin, there was the talks between the two, as this summit represents a continuation of India's time-tested strategic partnership with Russia. As we know that Russia is a time-tested partner of India from the time of the 1971 war. So here it says demonstrating New Delhi's commitment to maintaining balanced relationship amidst changing global dynamics. Like we have done defense cooperation, like about the S-400 missile system, which we operated during the time of Operation Sindoor, and it has got the fantabulous results after that. The potential which add-ons, joint military exercise like Garud and Varun, defense technology transfers. Russia remains India's largest defense supplier. As recently we have a deal of Sukhoi Su-57, which is it says about the transfer of technology. The Russia is providing the source code as well as the transfer of technology. It also says about trade and economy, like bilateral trade expansion, energy partnership, payment mechanism, investment opportunity, which can strengthen more economic relation between the two. The other one is that the healthcare collaboration, like pharmaceutical partnership. We have seen that India is the big exporter of the pharmaceuticals as well as the medicines across the globe. Vaccine development, cooperation, and medical research initiatives which discuss for mutual benefit. Now strategic significance, like reaffirms India's multi-alignment policy, balancing relationship with major powers whilst maintaining strategic autonomy in foreign policy. The other one is that we have recently seen that Prime Minister Narendra Modi was on a visit in the Middle East, like Oman, Jordan, and UAE. Here it says that Jordan, Prime Minister Modi visited on 15 to 16 December. The high-level talks with King Abdullah at Amman. Amman is the capital of Jordan here. Focus areas include bilateral trade enhancement, defense cooperation agreements, and critical regional security issues affecting West Asia. So the main aim behind this deal is that as India is going to host the BRICS summit next year, and we have seen that these countries of Middle East have joined the BRICS alignment recently. So for that, both India and these countries have mutual understanding between the two, which can further give efficiency to the results which are going on.